So it's no secret if you've been around the channel, I make pretty good biscuits, and I've just about perfected what I thought was the easiest way. But my sister the other day is like, "Hey, do you make easy biscuits?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." She's like, "Oh, so the ones that you don't have to roll out or anything?" And I'm like, so we're just going to start by throwing a cold stick of butter in a pan. Now I used a 9x13 here, but I would definitely recommend like an 8x8 or 9x9. Anyway, we're throwing that in the oven, preheating it to 450 degrees, and we're going to get started mixing the dough together. It's really easy. It's 3 cups of self-rising flour and a cup of milk or buttermilk, your choice. Now I just combine this and incorporate everything until it all comes together in a nice, neat ball. I had actually thought about not speeding up the footage here because it took so little time, like literally 3 minutes. I'm not even sure if the butter was done melting by the time that I got done with this. If you notice it is a little bit dry, you can add a little milk, of course. If it's a little wet, you can add some flour, but this is pretty close to where you're going to need to be. Now you're going to want to periodically keep an eye on your butter, and I waited until the milk solids started caramelizing or making brown butter before I pulled it out. Anyway, we're going to set that down and then just take our dough and cram it down into it, just kind of push it into the corners. And this is where a smaller pan would have been a little bit more beneficial because you're going to get even edges and stuff where I just did not have enough dough to fill this pan up. If you're going to use a pan this large, you should probably double this recipe or at least add 50%. But since I had so much extra real estate, I just kind of had to square this up as best that I could. Now you'll notice that when you push it down, obviously the extra butter is going to run out to the sides. And we're just going to take some of that and get it on top of these biscuits. And that's going to make them super extra buttery because we've got them on the bottom and the top. And even though these are the same ratios that I always make, these biscuits were probably twice as buttery as I typically make. Now you're going to want to score the top of these where you're going to cut your biscuits, or you can go ahead and cut all the way through if you want to, and that's just going to give you a little bit more surface area for that melted butter to run down into. And these biscuits are essentially just covered in butter on the outside. Now by this time your oven should be up to 450 degrees, and we're going to pop these in. The only downside of these is they do take slightly longer to bake than my normal biscuits because, it's essentially one large mass. Typically I bake biscuits for about 12 minutes. These took about 15 to get to where I was. Probably could have went a little bit longer to get a little bit better color on the top, but this was my first time working with brown butter on biscuits, and I was worried it was going to burn, but I don't think it would. I think a couple more minutes would have been just perfect on these. And now because I had that extra brown butter just rolling around the edges, I made use of that by drizzling it over the top of these while they were still hot, and then went ahead and tried and test one. Initially, I thought these were pretty much only going to be good for gravy and biscuit because I was like, there's no way they're going to split open good because I haven't worked them like you normally would biscuits. And when they were hot, they were kind of hard to pull apart. When they cooled down just a little bit, like you are able to split them like a regular biscuit. And I actually had ham biscuits later that night, and they turned out fantastic. Yes, this is the easiest way, I think, in the world to make homemade biscuits, and they are delicious. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed.